before you ever want to shut off the main water supply to the sprinkler system, you must contact your fire alarm company. So that way you can actually put the entire system on test first, especially since there's no fire. That way the fire department is not dispatched by accident. And another thing is, be specific, because sometimes the fire alarm company will call you and say you have a fire trouble alarm, meaning a water sprinkler is going off. And if you tell them specifically, yes, you can put that on test, what's going to happen is they may only do it for that system in itself. So when you're ready to shut off the main, you're cutting off the main water supply, and they only put the system on test for that water alarm, not necessarily for the riser itself. So once you shut off the main power supply, the fire department will get dispatched, and that's something that you want to avoid all in all, so that way the fire department can actually answer to other stuff that's an emergency. So in the unfortunate event that you have a sprinkler burst and you do not know exactly where the dedicated riser is for that specific sprinkler line, you're going to have to trace the pipes to the specific riser. And here I have a riser in itself, but I chose this riser in specific because this riser does not have a butterfly valve, meaning that you cannot shut it off from here. You actually have to shut it off from the main, and the main line is always painted red and the sprinkler system is painted black. This is how you know exactly where your water source is coming from. So once you know exactly where your riser is, this specific one you have to work in a two-man team, especially something with a big building like this in Yonkers, where you have multiple risers and you actually have some main gate valves outside that you're going to have to shut off. And those gate valves outside, or water main valves that you have to shut off, they are typically chained and obviously used with a padlock, so no outside person could just shut off the water source to the building. And on top of that, you want to keep it universal in your building. The padlock combination could be 111, 222, 333, whatever floats your boat, as long as everybody knows and understands the procedures. Worst case scenario, if you do not know, you may have to cut the lock, especially say a mechanic is covering the building, you're not there as a supervisor or anybody else that actually knows. You can also cut the padlock in itself to get access to the main gate valve. And for this one, we have to work as a two-man team. So once you have yourself in place, whether it's at the riser or the gate valve upstairs, what you can do is be in direct radio contact with your mechanic or over the phone, so that way you're able to execute this efficiently as a team. So the main valve is outside. So once the mechanic removes the padlock and the chain, you're going to be in direct radio contact and say, hey, mechanic, can you shut off the water flow or the pressure to the building? And once that's done, this is the most important step. So come on in so we can show you exactly what you need to do. So this one actually has, typically you have just a test valve, which is separate from the drain valve, but this one is actually a test valve and a drain valve in one. So you want to shut it off to the test, then shut it off one more time, because you're going to have to push this lever to turn it off to the drain valve that's right here. And once the water is drained, now you have cut the source to the fire sprinkler system, and that way you're able to also change the sprinkler head or whatever the case may be. Here's a quick example of what a butterfly valve looks like, but before we get into that, this is also a perfect example of when you have a riser that feeds two different areas of the building that is sharing the same main. As you see here, remember the mains are painted in red, and if you look up, you see that it feeds two different areas of the building. One goes to the offices and the other one goes to the rest of the building, wherever the pipes or sprinkler it feeds. And as you come in close, you will see here that we have system 7A and 7B. So 7A goes to the rest of the building and 7B goes to the complexes. So once we find out that we need to shut off 7A, this is the butterfly valve that we want to shut off. So this is the perfect example that we don't have to go outside, and the shut-off valve will tell you which way to go. Counterclockwise is to open, which is open at the moment because we want water to flow through, and clockwise is to shut. So once you start turning and shutting off, this dial here will go to the shut position, and now you've shut the water flow to the fire sprinkler system. Now, in order to drain the rest of it, you want to go to your drain valve, which this is the drain valve as we showed earlier in the video before. So you have the off, test, and then you got to push this valve to go down to drain, so the rest of the water drains out in itself. So hopefully you found this example perfect as well if you have one riser that feeds two separate parts of the building. Hopefully now you understand how to shut off your fire sprinkler system in case a fire sprinkler bursts, and this way you minimize the flooding and downtime in your facility.